In Walmart's Who'Knewville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my podcast, Esme's Country Life. You might be able to see that this episode is actually a bonus episode. So to celebrate the roll up to Christmas, I'm going to be doing 2 podcasts a week. So normally I post on a Saturday where I update you on my life, what I've been up to. I often have some very dramatic, embarrassing and funny stories about what I've got up to with the animals, but I thought we would do a little midweek one on a Wednesday. So let me know in the comments what you think we should call these bonus episodes, because I was thinking of calling them maybe my mini pods. I don't know, maybe something horsey. I feel like you guys are really creative, so if you have any ideas, let me know. So I thought for these Wednesday bonus episodes that are going to be a little bit shorter, I could talk about a particular topic, maybe something I'm passionate about, maybe something controversial. So if you also have any ideas or any topics you would like to hear my thoughts on, again, leave them down below in the comments. But before we begin, actually, I need to tell you what today's topic is. Today's topic is going to be all about how to manage spicy or overexcited horses in the winter, because it is that time of year where your horse might have a little bit too much pent-up energy, might find things a little bit more scary than usual, a little bit more excited. And I'm going to go through my top tips of how I manage my horses and keep them as happy and healthy as possible in probably the worst time of year to own horses, the winter. But anyway, before we begin, I just want to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of the podcast, Red Post. Red Post is an equestrian and country store based in the UK, and they also ship all over the world. And did you know that when this podcast episode goes out on the Wednesday, they are actually doing so many sales rolling up to Christmas as well, and also rolling up to Black Friday. So keep your eyes peeled. When this comes out, actually, they have up to 50% off competition boots, as well as up to 50% off Red Post coats as well. So go and check them out at redpostequestrian.co.uk. Anyway, let's get into today's mini pod episode. So yes, at this time of year, going into the winter, I find particularly my horses get a little bit more excited and a little bit more, I guess spicy is probably the word that I normally use to kind of call it. Some people say fizzy, whatever, rows your boat. But before I go into this topic, I just want to say all horses are different. So please take my advice with a pinch of salt and at your own risk, because again, I cannot see you. I do not know you or your horses. Some things might work for my horses that don't work for yours. So if you are having any behavioural issues with your horse or the horse that you are currently riding, then I would say please seek professional advice from somebody that can actually work with you and your horse in real life, rather than me chatting probably hundreds of miles away in my office. But anyway, let's begin of things that I wish younger Esme had known, especially when I first got Casper, because Mickey, bless him, he was a very chilled pony. And obviously all horses and ponies have very different personalities. So Mickey, my first pony, I was so lucky with him. He was so chilled. He was what you would call a bomb-proof pony. A bomb could go off. He wouldn't spook at it. He wouldn't run away at it. He would just be like, oh, okay, that's just happened over there. Anyway, back to my life. When Casper, on the other hand, I would say he's a little bit more of a nervous horse, a little bit more of an excited horse, and especially in the winter where there are lots of different things that go on, especially the weather is worse as well. So we've got to remember that horses are flight animals, so when it's windier, they're probably going to be a little bit more spooky because, number one, they cannot listen out for predators as well, because obviously the wind, when it's really strong, all you can just hear is wind. And also, The wind likes to rustle bushes, it likes to shake leaves and trees, and often, especially if it's like a little gust of wind, that can spook horses because they might think, oh, there's a predator in that bush, I'm going to be scared of it. But also, something to think about, especially when you go into the winter, is are all of your horses' needs met? Because when it's winter, I think a lot of horses maybe don't get their needs met as much as different times of year. For example, I know a lot of horses get less turnout or less paddock time in the winter. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand there is a time and a need for stabling your horses. Maybe you've had a snowstorm, maybe you've got an actual thunderstorm outside. There may be lots of different reasons why they have less turnout. Maybe the ground is frozen or the ground is awful. But I'd say the biggest thing that you can do to make your horse feel more comfortable and happier in the winter is giving them turnout. Now, I do know it really breaks my heart that there are so many stables and yards out there that don't offer any turnout in the winter. So you've got to think of it. If you had a toddler and you locked them in a room and then suddenly you were like, oh, you can go and run, they are going to go wild. And that's exactly what it's like with a horse. Or even if you trapped a dog in a bathroom all day and then suddenly let them out, they're going to go crazy, they're going to go wild. So there's, you got to think about the life that your horse is living and how their behavior is going to be reflected in that. So my horses, I'm so fortunate that they get turnout all year round. So maybe you might be thinking, if your horse is really having these behavioural issues, or maybe if they really don't have any turnout at all in the winter, it might be an idea to think about moving stables or moving yards, especially as turnout is just so important to their not only physical health but also their mental health as well. So yes, please think about it. They've also, I'm pretty sure, have done studies recently that horses with more turnout are less likely to have paddock injuries, and this is coming from a girl who owns Joey. Now, Joey has had multiple paddock injuries over the years, and you know when all of those paddock injuries have occurred? In the winter. And you know what he gets less of in the winter? Turnout. Because of bad weather, because of storms, that kind of thing. So as I said before, I like my horses to be out as much as possible, but also horses are creatures that in the wild, they're in herds. So yes, you might be putting them out in little turnout pens, but are their needs also being met by having friends with them? So I think group turnout is a really important thing. Again, horses are very social creatures. They like being in a herd. So maybe your horse's needs aren't being met because they don't have a friend with them. When a horse is in a stable, they are very isolated. So when you are turning them out, please turn them out with friends as well. So that's another thing to bear in mind. The next thing that I just would say that's a probably good idea to rule out if your horse is having any behavioural issues is, are they comfortable? So we've gone through the more psychological ones of turnout and friends and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing is, are they comfortable? So when did your horse last have their teeth checked? That's something that I think a lot of horse owners forget. No wonder your horse is going to be, unhappy if maybe it needs to have its teeth done, its mouth is really uncomfortable. I know some horses, if they don't go long enough without having their teeth floated down by the horse dentist, it can actually cause them a lot of pain because their teeth end up being too sharp and it can cause ulcers in their mouth. Another thing to also think about is, especially if you are riding a horse, is their back comfortable? So I get my horses personally, I get them checked regularly by a physio. I personally believe that every horse that is ridden should be checked regularly by a physio, because if you're working and riding that horse and you're sitting on their backs, you want their backs to be comfortable. A bit like us humans, every now and again, we might get a knot in our back, we might get a bit that's a little bit stiff, and I would really recommend, or an osteopath as well. So there's lots of different people you can check out, but I would definitely recommend that too. Also, making sure that their tack fits. Maybe going into the winter, your horse has lost a little bit of weight, or maybe you've been working really hard at your winter training program and your horse has gained more muscle. There's lots of different reasons why your horse could change shape. And actually, if your horse does change shape, a lot of the time you might need to get your saddle refitted. So again, think about, when did I last get my saddle refitted? When did I last get that checked? Maybe your saddle needs to be reflocked and there's actually like a few little bumps in there that's maybe pressing on your horse and making them uncomfortable. And maybe that's why they're acting out or bucking or rearing or whatever they're doing. Because with horses, when they have that pent up energy, when they're having maybe what some people would call behavioural issues, when I often think if a horse is doing that, it's probably because its needs aren't met rather than super behavioral issues. People have different opinions, but you got to think, why is my horse uncomfortable? Why are they acting this way? So again, make sure everything is checked. Make sure that they're happy. Make sure that also another thing is food as well. So there are lots of, as you guys know, horses, a lot of things can go wrong with them. They are very sickly animals. I feel like no horse owner is happy with the weight that their horse is. They're either saying my horse is too skinny, they're either saying my horse is too overweight. But something that is really important to not forget, especially in the winter, is make sure your horse has enough forage. Horses should have access to forage pretty much at all times. So that's your hay, your haylage, your grass if they're out in the paddock. And a lot of horses, especially if they're inside all the time, maybe they're quite stressed, they can develop ulcers, so please look out for that as well. There are lots of different signs for ulcers, so I don't want to list them all off. I would say go and do your research online about ulcers or talk to your vet if you do think, oh, maybe my horse has ulcers. But one of the most common things is if you're doing a horse's girth up and they're very girthy around their stomach, they maybe try to bite you while you're doing your girth up. I would say that's probably quite a typical sign that they are in pain and that something is wrong. No horse should bite you while you're trying to do their girth up, and that really is your horse telling you something is not right. So a lot of the time, again, if your horse is having a behavioural issue, it's probably because their needs aren't being met or they are in pain. Okay, so let's move on. Your horse is happy, healthy, you've had everything checked, they're not in pain, they are also getting as much turnout as they possibly can. But life is still quite exciting in the winter. Another thing that I would look at is their feed. What are you feeding them? Obviously, I talked about hay, haylage, your roughage, that kind of stuff. But what are you feeding them when it comes to sort of grain, balancers, the substrate, the sort of food that they get in their bucket as their breakfast or their dinner? So I would recommend, again, all horses are very different. Every horse has different needs and different feed requirements. So if you're not 100% sure, I would actually recommend emailing or looking on the websites of the feed provider that you have. So I am very lucky to be a sponsored rider for Bailey's Horse Feeds. I know that Bailey's personally, they do a lot of different yard visits or phone consultations where you can ring up and have a little chat to one of their nutritionists, talk about your horse, because obviously feeding is very dependent on how much you exercise them, the size of the horse, the age of the horse, if they're turned out, if they're in a stable. There's lots of different factors to what your horse should be fed and why. So they can give you some really good advice about what you should be feeding your horse. Now, for us, I know with my horse Joey, if he's on too much food for the amount of work that he's doing, he gets a little bit more excited. He has a little bit more energy. It's like, again, giving a child a load of sugar and then expecting them to sit quietly still like an angel and read in the corner. No, they're going to be wanting to run about, causing chaos, burning off that sugar. So again, you might need to feed your horse a little bit less in the winter. Then again, there are horses that aren't like mine, that are absolute pigs and get a little bit more overweight on barely any food. There might be some horses out there that do actually need extra food in the winter because they really struggle to keep that condition on. Maybe they're a little bit colder, all that kind of stuff. So again, take my advice with a pinch of salt. I know that with my horse Joey in the winter, when he's being ridden less for whatever reason, or just being ridden less for whatever reason in general, for example, when he had some injuries and had a little bit of time off and went through the whole rehab process, we gave him less food and he was a sweet angel child because he wasn't full of energy. So again, take my advice with a pinch of salt. Every horse is different. Okay, so you've been through all of that. Everything is good. But your horse is still very excited when it comes to their time of being ridden. So a few things that I would say that genuinely really helped me with Casper when I was younger, when he would get excited, is number one, which sounds very, very odd. This you're going to be like, Esme, this is very strange. But having a pair of grippy stirrups really made a huge difference to me. So, and this, I know this is not an ad. I'm just saying, especially as these first stirrups that I bought with my own money. But having a pair of stirrups that have a good tread on really helps when your horse busts some excited moves. Also, a little top tip, also having some sort of riding leggings or breeches that have sticky on them. That also helps. And also, I had a lesson and it was all about having a good position, not as in like, oh, I want a good position so I look pretty and I ride pretty and all that kind of stuff. It's about having a good position so you're secure, so you're balanced. So if your horse does decide to bust a move, that you know how to sit and know how to act when if there is, unfortunately, a bit of an explosion. So that really helped me as well. Something also that I know, that if my horses have maybe had a few days off for whatever reason, maybe it's been icy outside and the school's been frozen and I haven't been able to ride them for whatever reason, I know that if I ever doubt, I always think to myself, if in doubt, please lunge your horse. Because, again, some horses, it's probably safer to be on their backs than be on the ground. With my horse Joey, I know that I am safer on the ground to let him on the lunge line, let him have a run around as fast as he wants at his heart's content. Sometimes he just wants to let out some bucks, and you know what? That's okay. But you know what? It's better if I'm on the ground and he does it going around the arena rather than me clinging on for dear life. So yes, lunging is a really good tool to use if you do have a horse that has that excess energy for whatever reason and you just want to get it out. And especially if maybe you're feeling a little bit nervous, because when you are riding horses in the winter and they are excited, you do need to be comfortable, you do need to be confident, because that really helps them. If you're feeling nervous and you get on a horse that's going to be a little bit excited, maybe it's windy, maybe they're feeling nervous as well because it's windy and they're worried about predators, then that is just a recipe for disaster. So if you maybe have a day where it's a bit windy and you're feeling, oh, I don't know if I'm not feeling super confident today, lunge your horse. Lunge them, let them get that energy out. And then also it's a great way of warming them up as well. It helps warm them up before you get on, school them and do whatever you want to do with them. So yes, lunging is a very good tool. My horse Casper, on the other hand, I have come to the conclusion that lunging him before riding him when he's super spicy and super excited is probably a bit of a recipe for disaster, because although I would like to say Casper is, he's coming up to 20 now, he's coming up to his 20s, he really should know better, but he is the sort of horse where I don't want to comment on this too much, but I don't know what his previous life was like before we got him. And he has always done this thing where as soon as I go on the lunge, he will just run and bolt and buck and yeah. When Joey, don't get me wrong, he loves a little buck, he loves a little bit of excited thing, but he works his way up there. He doesn't just suddenly bolt as soon as you let him off. Casper, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something from his past, maybe it's just how he is psychologically. All horses are strange, they have their strange things that they do, but he is the sort of horse where I never hold a lunge whip with him really at all while I'm lunging him. I just let him off and he goes for it. So we have got to the stage where we think, you know what, this is probably not very good for him. Especially if it's winter and he's been in a stable all day and you put him out on the lunge, he needs a warm up. So with Casper, what I do is I get on him, and if I'm feeling a little nervous, because Casper went through a real difficult stage beginning of 2025, because his best friend, Mickey, had sadly passed away and he was just angry. He had this sort of angry level of grief. And it was interesting, my physio, when she was doing him, she was like, I can feel that he's been really tense and really angry lately, just really upset. And I was saying how oh yeah, his best friend passed away. And I think part of that is he was kind of in the angry stage of grief. So so that also meant that when I came to riding him, he just was not himself. He was not happy. So again, there's lots of different reasons why horses can have an emotional reaction to something. So anyway, when I did start riding him again and he was feeling a bit calmer, the things that really helped me with my confidence was, number one, going into the arena with my dad, just having him walk around with me. I found, especially if Casper was feeling a little bit nervous, maybe it was a bit windy or that kind of stuff. Again, horses are herd animals. Having that friend or having that extra person with him really helped calm Casper down. So if you can have somebody that can walk around with you in the arena, if you're feeling like your confidence is a little bit wobbly, that also really does help. Again, if safety reasons, if your horse is going to explode, maybe don't have your friend or family member next to them if you're worried they're going to get kicked or anything like that. Again, please stay safe out there, guys. Again, wear all of your safety products as well. Wear your body protector, wear your helmet, because you never know. Stay safe out there, guys. Also, another thing that I would do is, I know that Casper, if he is going to spook at somewhere, or if he is going to have a funny 5 minutes somewhere, it would always be the corner of an arena, which I feel like is quite an easy place when you think about it, because often it's the corner where maybe it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit scarier, maybe that's where the bushes are. So for me, what I like to do is go straight, when I go into the arena, I go straight into the middle and I do a 20-meter circle in the middle of the arena. And then I gradually go out and out and out until I'm on the outside track. I also find sometimes if my horses do have that pent up energy, they do feel like they really want to go. Sometimes when I go into that arena, I'll just do a tiny bit of walk and I'll be like, you know what? I can feel they have this energy. They really want to go. Let's use that energy to move them forward. So I'll trot round a little 20-meter circle in the middle of the arena. And sometimes if my horses, their brains are maybe a little distracted on what's going on in the bushes or the weather or something else, try and get their attention back as much as possible. So maybe that's doing a transition, maybe that's changing the rein, maybe that's going back down to halt. Like doing lots of things to keep their brain busy and keep their brain focused on you also helps reduce the explosions, because they're thinking, what's the next move? Where am I going? What are we doing next? Rather than what's in that bush? Why is that thing so scary? I don't like that. So that's also another piece of advice. The thing that helped me with Casper's bronking also, so back in the day, if you didn't know, when we first got Casper, when he was really nervous, his way of exploding or releasing that energy when he was really nervous was bronking. So that is when a horse basically puts their head all the way down, which often resulted in me doing a lot of roly-polies where I would slide off his neck and onto the floor and hitting the deck and eating dirt, and his back legs would often be right up in the air. So a buck, I don't know, I guess what's the difference between a buck and a bronc? A buck, I would say, is like a single, like little back legs up in the air. When a bronc, this was like down the whole long side of the arena, head down, back legs up, down, like going on and on. Anyway, so yes, that is not great, and that is obviously not what we want. So I found when Casper would bronc like that, often the reason why you would fall off is because he would be going really fast. Often maybe we'd already be in canter or that kind of thing. He'd put his head down, back legs would go up, and often when he would bronc, he would slowly slow down or just suddenly stop, and I would go over the front. So what I found helped with me personally was, instead of, pulling him up, pulling on the reins, asking him to stop, that didn't work because I'd just go off the front end. What actually helped me was trying to sit up the best I could and actually putting my legs on. When I would put my legs on, it would move Casper forward, and then when he was moving forward, his head would go back up again, and then I would be more balanced because I wouldn't be tipped forward over his head and do a roly-poly. Again, take this advice with a pinch of salt. Every horse is different. Some horses, if your horse broncs and you put your leg on, they might just bolt and it might end in disaster. But for me personally, I found this was the best solution for me to stay on. Again, if you are having struggles, please have a lesson with a qualified instructor that can help you and your horse, because all horses are different, and make sure this is a trusted person as well, because not gonna lie, there are some instructors out there that do not give good advice. So please do your research. But anyway, on that note, for this mini pod, I don't actually know how long I've been talking. I don't actually know how long these episodes are going to be. So please, please get used to it. Get used to it. That sounds really aggressive. Get used to it. Get with the program. But no, please bear with while I get used to these mini pods. Again, let me know what you think we should call these mini pods. I've had so much fun talking about this particular topic, and I hope that it helps you guys, because again, the winter is a horrible time, but the end is near. I'm saying this in November, but it doesn't last forever. It doesn't last forever, guys. If you also have any top tips, leave them in the comments. I'd love to read what you guys say. But anyway, thank you for listening to today's mini pod episode. I just want to say a huge thank you to Redpost for sponsoring the podcast, and I will see you on Saturday for my normal length podcast episode, which is probably one of the most exciting podcast episodes I will make this year. But anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye!